for this brand, and we thank you greatly. So Oscar, I'll invite you up just to say something real briefly.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Well, just I don't want to take away too much time from the panel here, but my family and I have owned this company for I think 35 years, and I come from the securities business, investment business. This is a very unusual length of time for people in the investment business to own something. And as I think about why I continue to be fascinated and love to be involved with campgrounds, I think of three things. Number one, this is a business that really encourages and supports people, family togetherness, to be together and to together see this great country, experience what this great country has to offer. I think that the second characteristic I love is that we work with and support a system of franchisees. As you probably know, the vast majority of the campgrounds are owned by individual entrepreneurs and business people. For them, this is a way of life. It's more than a business, and it's important that we serve them well and help them succeed. And I think the third reason is that ever since I first traveled to Billings about 40 years ago, I think, I have found a culture, a management that preceded my being there, with which I find common values, and that is a level of integrity, which I think commitment to supporting both sets of customers, the ultimate camper, but also the franchisees that we serve. And so together, I think that, I find that among all these characteristics, I would say that this represents perhaps the best values of our country. So I continue to love being involved, as I said, with campgrounds. I continue to learn a great deal from being this involved, and I hope that long after I'm gone, that my family will continue to have this great association. So thank you for coming here. I really look forward to learning everything that will be presented here. Thank you.
And his daughter is also Tracy and Glenn here. They are both on the KOA ownership board as well. So with that being said, I think it's time to get to our event. So Reiner Jens is going to be our MC for the evening. Some of you guys may remember him as a publisher, of course, with National Geographic before he started the Family Travel Association, and he'll take us through this evening. Reiner, thank you.
Thank you, and it's great to be here, and exciting to have everyone with us. We're going to have this panel discussion for about an hour, and then allocate perhaps 15-20 minutes afterwards for some questions for us. So that's kind of how we'll go through things. But again, it should be a very interesting and informative evening. So of course, I want to introduce you to our esteemed panel. First, to my far right, we have Sasha Segan. Sasha is the lead analyst for mobile at PCMag.com. In more than a decade with the site, he has reviewed more than 900 cell phones, tablets, and other gadgets. So afterwards, 15 years researching, writing, and working with in a variety of key areas that include leadership development, character education, body image, development, psychology, social and emotional learning, and most recently, grit and success. I like that. Now, as the go-to person to advise entrepreneurs, teachers, families, parents, and young people on how to set and get at goals, she helps others to develop their gifts, break through barriers, and achieve their dreams. And if she looks familiar, it might be because you've seen her on several of the morning shows, showing off her expertise on a variety of these subjects. And next to me, some of you already might know, Jim Rogers, who is the CEO of KOA, who interestingly has been in this business for over 40 years and started with KOA, I guess, in 1972 as a management trainee. And as I teased them earlier, I guess the lost sheep do find their way back to the herd. Because after a couple of years learning the ropes at KOA, he went back to graduate school and became a master at finance and accounting. He used those skills at Harrah's, where he pursued his entrepreneurial interests. He worked with our beloved Donald Trump as the Vice President of Marketing at Atlantic City's Harrah's property. He was Vice President of Marketing also at the Northern Nevada. And in 1994 was named Senior Vice President and General Manager of Harrah's in Reno. But again returned to KOA in 2000, and is now President and Chief Executive Officer. And if he looks familiar, it's because he's also a television personality. Now, this is a true story. I was having lunch.
You can't tell.
Well, it's right here, but true story. I was having lunch today with someone who I've done some work with, and I mentioned I was coming here this evening and that Jim was going to be on the panel. And honest to God, he said, Jim Rogers, was he ever on that show, Undercover Boss? And I said, I don't know.
Ken Beckford's dead.
Well, I heard it was the second highest rated show in that 4-year series, so some people remember it, so congratulations on that. Anyway, let's get to the subject of hand, which is this fantastic research study and its insights into camping. And as some of you may have seen or heard, Marcus described earlier, I was pretty surprised to hear that the #1 must-have camping gear equipment. Can you hear me? You doing okay here? The #1 must-have camping gear equipment is the cell phone. 83% of campers have it with them. So I'd like to start the panel discussion with Sasha, since he's our technological expert. Obviously, parents have they're trying to spend most of their time getting their kids away and off the electronic devices. So with parents kind of desperately trying to unplug their kids from this technology, especially while they're on vacation, by the way, how can this technology actually enhance a camping trip?
Well, we'll talk in a few minutes, and I know Dr. Silverman has a lot to say about ways to restrict and make healthier the use of technology, but there are two things I wanted to point out, and two ways that portable technology can really make the camping experience a lot friendlier, especially for people who don't camp a lot. The first idea is around security. We live in a society where the children's roaming and children's ability to travel has been highly restricted. And it's not like when some of us were kids and kids could roam the neighborhood, kids could go out in the woods, kids had these kinds of skills which they may not have anymore, which society may not think it's okay to have anymore. I've seen recently a lot of great children's security and locating devices. Things like the Philip from AT&T, the Gizmo Pal on Verizon, Sprint has one as well, which are these very limited cell phone-based devices that a kid can wear or carry that lets them contact their parents and lets them be located, and gives both the kids and the parents this sense of safety that will then give the parents a sense of security to let the kids roam a little further, to let the kids be a little more adventurous, and the kids can call back when they need to. Of course, standard cell phones also have this capability. There are a lot of great group and family location and messaging apps like Life 360 and Wave, where families can set up a group when they're camping, when they're traveling together. Then they can spread out. The teenagers can go wander off in whatever direction teenagers want to wander off in, and yet the parents will still be able to say where they are, and will still be able to privately message them and say, come back. So that's one area where this can be really useful camping. Another one that I've been thinking about a lot is what I think of as the restoration of lost knowledge. And this goes in some ways to that free Wi-Fi. And that's the fact that there used to be, once again, all of this knowledge about nature, which is not that common anymore, especially in urban and suburban people. And it can be very enjoyable to take a picture of that tree, take a picture of that flower, take a picture of that bug, Google image search it, look it up on Wikipedia, use that to restore this lost cultural knowledge of nature and this richness of understanding of nature that a lot of Americans just don't have anymore. And then when you get back to the campground at night, to be able to look up the words to that campfire song, look up a video of people singing that campfire song so you can remember the campfire song from when you were 8 years old that you now want to transmit to your children. So rather than rather than looking at these devices from the standard perception of, oh, it's video games and Instagram, looking at them from a way to really enhance the knowledge that should go with being out in nature that we may have lost. They can be great tools at that.
Wow, that's terrific to know.
Do they have Itsy Bitsy Spider?
You can find like 900 different versions of Itsy Bitsy Spider on YouTube. You can find people having vibrant debates about whether it's Itsy Bitsy Spider or Eensy Weensy Spider.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
big groups there.
Now, Sasha, I'm sold. I think you gave a pretty convincing argument there and analysis on the technology for the good. Dr. Robin, let's do a little reality check, though. For parents who are a little more skeptical and think, well, my son or daughter is only going to really be checking Facebook, and I don't know if they're really going to be using the GPS tracker and looking up spiders on Google and so forth. How can parents set kind of a healthy limit on the use of technology while they're camping? Do you have any recommendations on that?
I think the key here is to make sure that you are in control of the device. The device is not in control of your family. And we all know what it looks like when the family has been taken hold of the different devices that our children love to play with. And frankly, if we're being truly honest, that we like to play with. So before you even go on the camping trip, it's important to sit with your children and have a discussion about what is appropriate use of these devices. Which devices do you want to use? Who can you contact through these devices? So you want to go through your basic questions. The who, the what, the where. So where are you going to be using these devices? Is it back at the campground? Is it on your way out to the campground? And make sure that everybody's in agreement as to when they're going to be using it and where they're going to be using it. If they are bringing something that's going to connect them with the world at large, you're going to have, obviously, safety reasons. You want to make sure that they're not telling everybody where they're going, that everybody has left the house, and it is now empty, and we're not going back for another 5 days. So make sure everybody's aware that we don't do that for safety reasons. And then, when is it appropriate to share your photos? When is it appropriate to call a friend if that's going to be allowed on your camping trip, or text a friend? There may be a time in the morning that you set for an hour that you said this is going to be your time that you can do what you would like to with your technology. Or after the day is through and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon and you are now cooking dinner and your children are able to upload those photos that they've been taking all day. Because for teenagers especially, sharing their photos and sharing what is going on in their lives is not just an extra. It's not just fun, but it is actually a core part of their lives. The cyber life and their life are no longer separate. It is just one life. This is the life they are leading. And when they are not able to share their experience with their friend through words and through images, it's as if it's not really happening. There's a validity to the sharing. There is a feeling that there is something special. about what they're doing. And it allows for interaction. So imagine a child or a teenager that is uploading their photos from the day onto their Instagram. It's that amazing bush that happened to have a heart flower. It's the amazing insect that they saw, or it is the goofy child that they had been going with, their little sister that put something on their head and called themselves the queen, and they're running around and as happy as can be. And this is what they're posting on Instagram. And then the next morning, they wake up and they get to see all the reactions to those pictures. That is a lot of fun for them, and it also says to them, what you're doing is cool. It's interesting. I want to know about it. I want to do it too. So there's something very good about being able to share that information online, but understanding that there's going to be a specific time and place to do so.
Let me say something for a second, just to add what Dr. Silverman said about parental control software. Parental control software is a marvelous, marvelous thing as long as everyone is completely on board. And you can get everyone completely on board. And in fact, parental control software is also really great for adults because we compulsively check our phones. We have, it is so difficult for us to disconnect from work. If you are traveling with your family, or heck, even if you're just traveling with your spouse, and you want to say, okay, let's set aside between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. for us not to look at our phones, putting some parental control software on all of those devices, including the grown-ups devices, and setting it for that is a great way for everyone to just have a handshake and a backup. It's a backup to your own admittedly wavering self-control. I at one point had an app on my phone called Distractify, which pops up a little robot every time you turn on your phone. And the little robot says, do you really want to look at your phone right now? Wait 45 seconds. And you have to wait for a 45-second countdown before you can do anything. So you can definitely think of parental control software and that sort of thing as being in your arsenal for getting people to pull away a little from these electronic devices. But as I said, everybody needs to be on board. It doesn't work if some of the people in the family have an adversarial perspective towards it.
Right, you want to make sure that it's not a do as I say but not as I do situation where you have permissions to check your phone incessantly, but your children are not able to check their favorite social media.
Well, let's put it this way. I think, we've got a lot of travel writers in the room, and I've done my share of that as well. I think, I have a special app specifically for us. Believe me, I've been in more than one situation where my kids have looked at me like, Dad, in terms of uploading images and putting them on social media and Facebook, particularly while traveling. But I will say this, the travel industry obviously loves it. They encourage and want their guests to share their experiences with their networks because obviously that's a big driver of business. So with that said, Jim, let me ask you, with all this proliferation of social media and technology, how has that affected KOA and its product development and how it's moving forward in this new technology age?
Well, obviously we've got to catch up. This is moving so fast, and we're campers. Come on, we're still loving it. I got to replace my Coleman Landon with a technology. But look, most campgrounds today are going to provide Wi-Fi. Providing Wi-Fi in a campground is not as easy as it is in a hotel. We're spreading out over 20, 30, 100 acres. And, everybody wants to have that instantaneous catch. And so that's difficult. But I think, again, we're sensitive to it. And the fact that we're responding to the guest need. When I started at KOA in '72, there was no Wi-Fi on the top 20 things that people wanted. Clean bathrooms are stuck around, and obviously the attention to kids. But the fact that Wi-Fi is now number 3 in terms of that selection. And what Sasha said, safety and security has always been an important component of camping, especially in a KOA campground. And so the fact that you can bring that association with the technology that indeed gives you a greater sense for that, it just further drives the ability that people will be interested in. I love this, in the moment slideshow. When I grew up, my dad took pictures, but we waited 2 weeks after they got back from the drugstore, and then we got together after dinner, and Dad would slip the slides in, And I think you used the word "in the moment" slideshow. This is fantastic for this business, and I go back to the goals that Oscar talked about. For our ability to make youth get excited about the experience their friends are having in the outdoors, we need to get kids outdoors, ladies and gentlemen. There's so many benefits, which we'll talk about later, but the fact that we can use technology to communicate this fun back to another audience is precious in terms of what this country needs. So good point.
So Jim, well, let's explore that for a little bit. Okay, our technology time is over. That's it. We're going to cut the technology now. Look, one amazing statistic that I learned about researching and getting ready for the panel is that 44% of Americans camp regularly. That's an impressive number. 25% do it annually. 1 in every 4. I think there are a lot of segments in the travel industry that would love to have those numbers. So maybe again, starting with you, Jim, what are some of the key reasons why this is so popular?
Well, look, I think that the fact is, especially for the travel writers in the room, I don't think the world knows that figure. Okay, so the opportunity here is the fact there's a huge industry. I don't like to use the word industry, but there's a great sector in our business that indeed have got people going outdoors and having a good time. What you need to realize here is that camping involves a lot of different types of accommodations. You've got a tent. 54% of all campers in the United States are in a tent. And I think about 30% are using RVs, and the difference are into our deluxe cabins. This is a real opportunity for a variety of experiences that people don't have to have a piece of equipment. They can actually show up, and we've got camping cabins and deluxe cabins. Deluxe cabins, for those of you that think Marriott is camping, the deluxe cabin is a Marriott. Okay, it's got a bathroom, a kitchen. It sleeps up to 6 people. It usually has a deck. It's absolutely gorgeous. We have about 2,500 of them in our system. And we have 4,000 log cabins, which have got beds and electricity and air conditioning. So again, you can pull in and take advantage of that. So we're making it much easier for people to go camping. And as you mentioned, we're in the hospitality, outdoor hospitality business. We're going to make it easy on you to go from your backyard to the backcountry, okay? That you've never had help before. We're going to be there in our yellow shirts with a talented staff. They're going to take care of things, to figure out how to get the firewood to your campsite, to deliver pancakes in the morning, to help you with the wine tasting at night, to give you tie-dye t-shirts at noon. I mean, the activities and the entertainment that are going on in campgrounds around North America today are phenomenal. And I think that's all leading to a great growth.
Some even have movie nights, don't they?
We got movie nights, we got floating screens in the swimming pools, we have horseback riding, we got zip lines. So, our job on the commercial side is to begin to make you aware of what indeed is going on at a campground.
Right.
A private campground in particular, and a KOA all the way.
So, Dr. Robin, let me ask you, what are some of the specific ways that camping can actually help families and help them bond and build these strong relationships that they so desperately seek?
There are a lot of benefits to families, and certainly helping them to create stronger bonds. So the idea of being able to just get away with your family and have uninterrupted time or controlled interruptions is something that we don't often see. We don't often have that. You're getting away from the daily grinds, and you're getting away from the latest drama, and you're getting away from the TV, the internet, unless you want to plug into it, and you are being just with the people who are in front of you. So this is unusual now. We're often connected with so many people around the world through our social media, and our teens certainly are very much in touch with a lot of acquaintances they call friends. Sometimes you can be with your family and you're not actually with your family. So, I feel that camping can provide a vehicle for bonding. Just think of the family that is getting ready for the camping trip. You can sit down with your family and have a terrific discussion about what everybody wants out of that camping trip. What are some things you really would like to do? What would you like to see? What would you like to happen? You ask them the question, at the end of the camping trip, what do you hope we have done? What is one thing, 2 things, 3 things that you hope we have done? And so you can start with that conversation, and that will already set the tone for togetherness and for bonding. while you are at that camping ground, the idea of putting together the fire. I still remember being young and getting all the sticks, and you go out and get the sticks, and you go out the sticks, and we're all going to get together, and guess what's going to happen next? We're going to make dinner. We got those baked apples, we got the s'mores, we got the hot dogs. I mean, everybody's smiling in the audience because, of course, you remember those amazing times. So that is already going to bring everybody together. And then what do you do around that campfire besides cooking? You're singing, you're telling stories, whether they're the scary stories or nostalgic stories. That's going to bring everybody together. And dad or mom or whoever is there with you gets to talk about the time when they were young and they jumped into the lake and this is what happened. I think that can help ground a family and say, you know, we lead such busy lives. Now we are away from all of the activities and the overscheduling and the peer pressure that tells us we're supposed to feel one way and do another thing. And this is a time to really plug in. It's the walks along the campgrounds, it's the looking at the stars, it's just talking and connecting with your family and remembering that the only noise that you need to hear at this time is your child's voice, and you can really listen to them. They can listen to you. There's a time to teach and learn about the world around you and really get to know what's going on in your child's head. What is really going on with my mother or my father? I think it's a time that you can bond that's different than any other time because there's nothing out there but you.
That's classic. Childhood memories, bonding. That I can certainly. Well, all right. I'm going to tell you one story anyway, since you asked. We all know the stories about the little mouse rubbing on the side of the canvas tent, and of course everything's amplified, tenfold when it's in that kind of environment. Well, actually, my family and I, with actually another family of four, we did some camping in Tanzania. And honest to God, the first night that we were at camp, we had literally a pack of about 60 elephant go through our campsite in the middle of the night. We were in 4 separate camps. Each adult had one child with them. Very interesting moment. Again, if you think these little mice make some noise when they rub the side of the tent, just imagine what elephants do. But the great thing about the whole experience is that, despite the heart doing a little bit of this and the fear of what happens if the kids wake up, none of the children woke up. The next morning, we all get out of our tent. All the parents are looking at each other, a little bleary-eyed because we lost a little bit of sleep. None of the kids woke up, and they were all so disappointed that they hadn't actually heard 60 elephants.
Ultimate Instagram moment.
So let me tell you about family bonding. But
I want to extend on this a little bit, though. I'm so in sync with what she's talking about, embracing family. But I also want to suggest to you that it happens with that stranger that's camping next to you.
That's true.
We have lost as a society any engagement. We fly across the country. We sit next to somebody in our seat. They've got the earphones on. They've got the computer up. And the only thing they say every 5 hours is, "Excuse me," to go to the restroom. We don't engage as a society the way we used to. When you arrive at a campground, within 5 minutes, the person next door to you, "Go Bears," "No, go Giants," "Go Jets." I mean, it's, or there's some comment about the awning on your rig, or there's something about your dog, or the kids are playing around like you haven't seen them play in years. There's something in that environment, not only to the family, but to the other people in that environment that is so precious and it's missing in so much of what we do. I like to refer to it as sort of this oasis of genuine engagement, because what happens, we all need this. But we go home after the weekend and we kind of go, "What was that? That felt good." And I hugged somebody, I shook somebody's hand, I talked to somebody. It was really nice, because in the rest of my life, I don't do that. And so I think that is a component for some reason in the community that's a campground. It's very precious. It's not like a big sign we put up. The analogy I use is I stay in a hotel. And can you imagine knocking on the door next door and, "Hi, Jim Rogers, you think you're going to get shot?" I mean, come on. You don't do that in other hospitality experiences. But at a campground, it's fine. We're sharing within minutes.
you're going to be knocking on the door for other reasons next
door.
time.
No
door.
Well, speaking of engagement and disconnection, if you will, Dr. or Richard Louv, who some of you may know, has written a book on this very subject that he terms nature deficit disorder. That there's a book he's written called Last Child in the Woods, and it talks about this disconnection, and children in particular who are spending more and more time in front of the screen and with technology, and the importance for them to get outside. But so Sasha, as the tech guy, let me ask you, just how important is it for kids to get outdoors?
It's hugely important. Actually, I read that book. It's an amazing book. It is a great study. It is tremendously important for our society. But I'm going to use what you said, Reiner, to point out that okay. So I lived certainly more than half of my life in the 20th century, and I think many of the audience here lived at least half of their lives in the 20th century. And what we remember from our 20th century camping experience probably involves a state or national park, probably involves a poorly staked tent, may involve rain getting into that tent and then everyone having to crowd into the Subaru for the rest of the night. And we've seen, and today in the 21st century, we see very different demands and very different tolerances, frankly, when it comes to material comfort in lifestyle. And I'm not talking about, I'm not going to use the horrible travel writer G word, which involves really expensive camping. But I'm just talking about how kids today, and for that matter, adults today, unless they're really into outdoorsness and extreme living, are probably less likely to put up with the leaky tent concept than many of us were in 1985 when it was just the thing that it was. So I think it's critically important to get across something that Jim said earlier of how there are options for camping nowadays that are affordable, that do get you out into the woods, and that are not the leaky tent with no bathrooms and the camping in the mountains of South Africa, which I did when in college, which was an amazing experience, but I didn't wash for 6 days. Today's teenagers who are so cosseted and so constantly surrounded by, in many cases, comfort and interaction and this bombardment of social media, may find it much easier to disconnect and to start to connect to the outdoors in a civilized space like these KOA spaces that Jim is describing than in the camping experiences of our youth. And so communicating that and getting across how the 21st century camping concept is different in terms of that comfort from the 20th century camp concept really gets the internet generation able to get out and connect with nature in ways that they absolutely need to do.
Well said. Thanks, Mark. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. We've got some more ground to cover. As Marcus mentioned during the introductions, one of the key findings of this study is that multicultural groups have really increased in the amount of camping that they're doing. Both,
I think it's you.
both in, hello, maybe it's me. Multicultural camping has, the numbers have gone up quite dramatically in the last couple of years, increasing from about 12% to 23% this past year. So, Jim, I want to try to understand this increase a little bit. The results also show that there are attitudinal and behavioral differences as well among this group when compared with the others. So, what's going on here? Help us understand this a little bit.
I don't think you can pick up a paper today and not read about the need for cultural diversity in the Silicon Valley and employers that are trying to figure out a way to be a little more representative of what our population looks like, and I think camping is that same type of rainbow. We have opportunities to increase that. What we find, and I think it goes back, and maybe Sasha will comment on it, is that there are
First crowd.
Yeah. All right, speaking of diverse crowd, we have a crowd here, and I would actually be curious, as I'm sure some of you might be, how many of you have camped before? There we go. All right, be honest now. I know we're a certain company here, a special company, but has anyone not gone camping? All right, up on the panel. Let's go. Thank you for being honest. Well, at least we're defining the national averages here. But there certainly are, and we're not going to give you a hard time, but there certainly are real and but mostly I think perceived issues on why folks choose not to camp. So I want to kind of throw this out, and maybe we'll start with Sasha. What would you say to families who are not sure if camping is for them?
I would go back to that answer I gave a little earlier of saying that basically the 2015 camping experience is not the 1985 camping experience, and that many families who are deciding whether or not to camp may be thinking of that 1985 camping experience. And as we've been saying for the past little while, and as Kim has explained, you know, whether it be the cabins or the free Wi-Fi or just the fact that there's a staff to help you erect your tent when you may not know how to do it yourself, it is a very, very different experience than you know, National Lampoon's Vacation.
Jim, can you expand, if you've done research or study into this area on, again, what some of the barriers are that are keeping people back? And
Time. We know it, travel, you're right, it's time. And I think that the good news here, in many articles written recently, and she could probably jump in here, but you know, we with technology, what happens is we end up with conflicting goals. We have so much information hitting us all the time, family, business, you name it. And so we feel like we're running out of time because it's bombarding us. We have conflicting, you know, interests throughout the day. And so we go, geez, we're having a time. And what's happened is there's no clarity between work time and free time. Because we go home and we got our computers, our laptops, our iPads, and it's coming with us. I'm suggesting that some of that clarity evolves if you move over to a camping environment, you manage your time with your technology the way these two have suggested. And I think you're going to find that there's a greater sensitivity to now I've got some vacation time, I'm away. Very, very important. And that again, I think is reinforced in some of the research that, you know, Scott's reporting here. How about the doctor? She might have a thought on that.
I think if somebody were to ask me why they would go, considering that they may have some preconceived notions in mind, one of the things I might offer to them is that you can dip your foot in, you can dip your toe in. You don't have to commit fully to a full vacation made up of camping. You can actually make this exactly what you want. So I have one of my friends who comes from Boston and always travels in her RV down to Florida. And at the end, they go to Disney World. But along the way, they stop at campgrounds and they camp. They have everything they need in their RV. Even if they are going to pitch a tent, they have that in their RV and they can engage in the way that they want. So this is important for families to know that if you want to try camping, you actually can on the way to do another piece of a vacation that incorporates an entirely different lifestyle. And then on the other side, one of the other things I would want a family to know is that all those things that you're trying to fight against on a normal everyday basis with your kids can be alleviated by going camping. So if you do tell. So camping and being outdoors has enormous benefits to children. There are countless studies that tell us that being out in nature can be very, very healthy. Not just in the sense of the physical, which we know is important because the kids are going to be exercising more, walking more, and getting out there, climbing trees, getting in the water, but also in the cognitive way, in a social emotional way. If you think the child who's now being exposed to a new place and they're exploring like we used to do, getting down on hands and knees, digging in the dirt, looking at the trees. I know when taking my own daughter out on a discovery walk, you can walk up to a tree and what is this, Mommy? It's lichen. What does that mean? And you can actually engage on a different level with your child outside of the school education type of parameters. And you can see what can really influence your child, what interests your child, and maybe this is the time when you can expand their knowledge in a very different way. So their cognitive development is expanding. And then there's the social emotional piece. Because children are so overscheduled so much of the time, running from one thing to the other. Is it hockey? Is it skating? Is it gymnastics? Is it piano? What is the next thing they have to do? When you take them out of that environment and allow them to create their own schedule, then they are able to get in touch with what they truly want. They're able to work through a lot of their own problems. It's the time when you will hear about the girl that's been bothering them in 5th grade. It's the time when you hear that they no longer want to do the skating and maybe they'd like to try horseback riding. They become more open and they become more in touch with their feelings and what they're thinking because there is nothing else to distract them. They can have a conversation with you and you can truly listen. And the development piece is really expanded. So I would really want a family to know that you can make the camping trip what you want and you can get in touch with your children in a very different way and perhaps develop a side of themselves that they have not yet developed.
Also, as the cell phone guy, I give you permission to tell your boss that there is no signal at the campground. Your boss won't believe this if you're going to, San Francisco or somewhere like that. But you can tell them there's no signal at the. It's just 2G. The email can't come through.
It must not be a KOA.
Whether or not that's actually true, they might believe it.
Right.
This description that she gives, I love your illustrations. But again, that couple, that family that's traveling to Disneyland, those of you that grew up in the era that Sasha was talking about, we used to get a little bit of that at the dinner table. It was kind of the family came together. We don't obviously do that anymore. But getting into a car or into an RV as a family, we talked a little bit about this. I think if you go back to the Robin Williams movie RV, you'll remember the daughter and all that going, she was like, I don't want to do this. But this time together in that RV is so precious. It's like you've locked them all up and you're talking to each other again. And so again, it's surprising that people kind of fight it going into it. But when you talk to people after they've taken a week together in an RV camping, they come back and go, that was the best family vacation we've ever had. So I think the opportunity there is to share more of this as you're talking about.
Well, to that point, let me ask you all. Look, this is music to my ears. The Family Travel Association, we're trying every day to inspire families to travel more and get out and do different things. These are all really important messages, particularly the examples you just gave. So what could we all do to help families spread the word and share their experiences with others? Besides some of the obvious, we've got the social media and the like, but Dr. Robert, would you suggest or would you know of any ways that we can kind of accelerate that sharing process? Or
To me, the best sharing is through story. And when you can tell somebody what you've seen in your own children, that when going into a camping experience, you were all very uptight, disconnected, you felt that you didn't really know one another as much anymore, and there was always just a running from one thing to the next. And then during the course of the time, being involved in that camping experience, what about those moments? It's those moments when you were under the stars and your daughter told you that she loved you. It's that moment that you're in the creek and you hear that laugh that you haven't heard in so long. I always remember going on vacation with my father. He was this high-powered lawyer, and we would go on vacation together, and it would happen like the third day. Just this release, this laugh, and it was like the best sound because he finally let go. And I think that when we can tell those stories and really get in touch with those things that make us all human, that connect us all, that make that other parent say, yes, that's what I want. I want to see that stress disappear from myself, from my child, from my spouse. I want to see my children embrace life in the way they used to. That would get them very interested. And of course you can show them all the great pictures and talk about, you know, the campfire, because everybody has those incredible memories.
Well,
of the
let's
campfire.
hope that we're all doing that, sharing those experiences. As we kind of wrap up a little bit, you know, this idea of communication and helping the cause. Jim, you've got to be pleased with the fact that the White House has now kind of gotten into the game a little bit. You know, they're encouraging, they have a new initiative that are encouraging kids to get outdoors and visit national parks. The national parks, as many of you may know, is celebrating their 150th birthday anniversary. Do you think that this will have a big impact also on business moving forward? And what do you see happening as a result of that?
I think the more that we talk about this, the better we're going to do. And the fact that the president wants to get every fourth grader into one of our parks is great. I think Mrs. Obama's been pushing to get kids outdoors, you know, for some time. It needs that kind of attention. We need a celebrity that's saying this is the right thing to do. And I think it starts with people that are in this room. I mean, we have a tremendous opportunity here to encourage Americans to find easy ways that are safe and comfortable for diverse audiences to go out and spend family time together. The challenge we have is that so often it's not you're going to the KOA, it's you're going to Yellowstone Park. And Yellowstone Park and Glacier don't have the apps and don't have the technology, and so the public domain isn't as advanced as the private side is. So we've got work to do to help them as the attraction, you know, and they're going to take us on the way. And obviously we're trying to build destination kinds of experiences, and people are taking advantage of that. The thing we haven't talked about relative to all this is gas. The price of gas is having a major impact on this business. And there's some quotes in here about those folks that are planning this summer to reach out because of where we are with the price of gas. And I think it's impacting more than just what gets charged on my credit card for the gasoline. I think it's having an impact on disposable income. It's saying people are going to camp more often, they're going to go further, and they're going to try to reach the national park or that attraction they haven't been to before. So there's this momentum gaining, and I think the domestic travel market in terms of the impact that gas has had, and we caught that in this research. And there's a whole section, again, I would encourage each of you that looks at that piece, that's a critical component, and I think it's going to have a big impact in getting some people into this opportunity that we're describing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for the lower gas prices. Okay, we've had discussion on numerous topics. We've covered a lot of ground, shared stories. So now we want to kind of turn it over to the crowd. We have some questions, so yes.
I have a question to follow up on the national parks issue. So people get concerned that they're actually overcrowded, they can't get reservations, and I'm curious, are you in the national parks or outside the parks? And also, and that brings to mind, are you actually at travel destinations? You mentioned the endpoint being Disney, but are you at travel destinations that families want to get to anyway, that this can be an added experience?
Karen, that's a great question. What happens in state situations as well as federal is that they get their sites sold out first. I mean, 6 months in advance, you wait till midnight, you go online, you try to make the reservation in that site next to the river that's pretty rough. There's probably a picnic table there that was built in 1950. But it's like it's precious to you, and they fill it fast. And yes, the private system KOAs are surrounding in the gateway communities. We've got beautiful facilities. Same thing in the most of the theme park areas, Las Vegas, Disneyland, Disney World. We're there, and there are wonderful facilities that can give you that kind of a first-class experience. But again, and the other thing you need to know is we've worked with the reservation system at the national and state levels so that if indeed they are full, they can refer them to us. So we are working through some of that coordination so that the person that wants to get there can.
Hello? Yes, okay, I'm Mark Leos, WBAI Radio. Drilling down on your data sets, do you have any information on gay travel or other SG type of family structures?
I don't believe that we do.
No.
No, it's not included in this research. It's something that we're going to explore in the next round, looking at more of the family structures in more detail through this next version of them. We'll start in the next few months. So.
Sasha, I was wondering, you were talking about apps. I wondered if you can suggest any favorite apps to encourage outdoor education. I know Audubon has some. Just wondered if you had some favorites.
Nope. I mean, I would say I use less specifically outdoor specific apps than the general search apps. Google image search, terrific. Google things like Google Word Lens and Google Translate. There are various apps that let you take a picture of something and then try to identify it. And that is a really big deal for me, you know, when I'm out there looking at things. Sorry.
The Compass app. Very handy.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's basics like a compass. You got to have a flashlight app. Flashlight apps are possibly the most popular kind of app ever. Mapping apps. As I said, the family location apps, Life 360 and Wave. I love those for keeping groups together. The parental control and anti-distraction apps, like as I mentioned, Distractify. And there's just a ton of parental control apps out there which basically let you lock down various functions of your device with a password so that you're not tempted to use them. No, I mean specific outdoors organization apps don't come immediately to mind for me.
It's a new National Parks app that it's like an audio guide that you get and it'll take you through the parks.
Yeah, that's absolutely great.
That's because they eliminated the ranger.
It's not from the national parks. It's not the national parks.
I have a question for all of you. I've covered family travels for a long time. I'm based in New York, so I probably have a New York-centric viewpoint for families. But one of the things I'm often asked, particularly by single parents, is they're looking for a destination that can help them connect with their children. Many of them work, even in families where they're still partners. They're often both working all day. They don't really know their kids as well as they'd like to. The kids have gotten older and sort of grown beyond them. And they're a little afraid, I would think, to be put into a canvas tent in the woods, in the dark, in the rain, and have to cope with these people who are a little bit foreign to them. They don't want to make any mistakes. Their time is so precious. So my question to you, it's a big burden, obviously, is there anything in your campgrounds or any of your owners or franchisees doing anything to facilitate that connection, to put particularly adults in kind of a safe environment where they can feel comfortable?
So pass that microphone back to the lady right behind you, if you would. Sam, give that to Renee. Renee, did you hear that question?
Yes, I did. You know, my name is Renee Chevet from the Rhode Island, and it's such a pleasure to be here because, you know, and I'm going to answer your question, but I have to make one statement, if I may. You know, organizational health is very much like individual health. You have to have great DNA, which you can see from Oscar Tang and Jim Rogers. We've had it for many years in this operation. But it also you need the ability to consume the right foods, consume the consumer's thoughts, and you also need the opportunity to dig in and understand and exercise and do some mental aerobics. And this whole report gives the franchises and franchisees a number of wonderful opportunities to use a telescope, to use a microscope, and to use a broad angle lens in analyzing these data. Every single one of the franchisees and every single one of the corporate KOAs will utilize these data to take a look at all the opportunities that we can provide a majority of audiences and give them a blend of an array of opportunity that meets their needs. You can take in wonderful opportunities with lake regions and forested regions and canal and stream regions. But the things that we do at our campgrounds, and I have some franchisee colleagues right here next to me, is we take the grandpa, we take the mom, and we take the grandchild and cousins and nieces and nephews and friends and give them an opportunity to do an awful lot of things to connect them in safe environments. One of the things that I think we might be missing a little bit here today is it's not all about tenting. There's an awful lot of opportunity with RVs, as I look at my senior advisor to our right, and an awful lot of opportunities in safe environments with deluxe cabins. You can have 3 rooms and put 3 generations under one structure in a very safe environment, and many of us have those opportunities. So we look for ways to get 3 generations in multiple dwellings together. And I can attest, as I look to my colleague over here again at the right, that we're going to be utilizing all of these data and drilling down to do a little bit more and a lot more in different ways throughout the next year.
Earlier, just before the panel, they gave me one of these directories, these campground directories, and speaking as a writer, there's just so many interesting potential little stories in here. Like, I, of course, immediately opened to the New York page, and I see, oh, here's one with cabins and a shuttle service from the commuter train. Okay, so that's camping for people who can't even drive. Or looking at the Herkimer Diamond one, they talk about solar-powered astronomy and robotics-themed lodges. Okay, I didn't know that was a thing. Exactly. Exactly. So if you flip through this directory, you may find some interesting things.
The other thing I jump in is that quite often, you know, the family comes out and sets up at the campground, and dad still goes back to work, or mom goes back to work. I mean, so there is that opportunity, and I would also tell you that Renee and her staff, you know, or folks at all the campgrounds are going to provide assistance. This isn't we want you to be the best parent. You know, we don't want you to fail setting up your rig or your setting up your tent or your campfire tonight. We want to help you cook s'mores. We got a store. We got the capability of making that come off really well. And that's, I think, again, part of the private side of this campground business that offers that. And it's really easy to find this because we wear yellow shirts everywhere.
I think also that when you think of camping, sometimes the first thing that comes to mind is the lodging experience. Am I going to be in a cabin? Am I going to be in a tent? But there's a lot of things that you're doing during the day that can bring you together. So, for example, my thought goes directly to zip lining and to ropes courses. That is one of the things that I remember the most from camping. And the most fun part, in my experience, and in my opinion, for me. So if you have something, if you can look through the book and see what types of experiences your families would like to have. So if everybody says, oh, I would really love to try a ropes course, then you make sure that you go to a campground that has whatever amenity you're looking for, and that activity, that nature walk, whatever it is going to help bring you together because it's talked about before and becomes then a bonding experience that's anticipated, because that's a lot of fun right there, and then you finally go and everybody is part of this experience and you're watching mom scream on the zip line. You know, that's a fun experience. It's another Instagram moment. And you're up there yourself, conquering your own fears. And it's when your single parent is able to say to you, I didn't even know you could do that. I'm so amazed by you. Now, one thing I know about you is that you are courageous, and I admire you.
You're the best mom.
No, you're the best mom. That's what we want.
Well, look, there's one last point I want to make, and that really makes camping, I think, unique on a number of levels. But one is, when you really think about it, this is something that the children would really drive the parents to do. And it's a broader point when it comes to family travel in general, but the importance of getting kids involved in vacation planning, I think, is really important, particularly when they're younger. And this, I think, is probably, of anything I can think of in this segment, it's probably the one thing that the kids can really get involved with. And then what does that lead to? Confidence, the desire to travel with your parents more. It's not so bad. It gets them involved in future ideas. I mean, this could be a platform and a launching pad to many great adventures that go well beyond camping. I think that's not a minor point. within all of the context of family travel. Did we have any more questions? We do have cocktails and hors d'oeuvres waiting for us, but before that, do we have any other final thoughts or questions? Jim, do you want to add any?
No, I just like to appreciate everyone coming, and again, I think we have a responsibility as Americans to help our fellow Americans have a better life, and I think that the opportunity is before us in terms of getting them together with family and friends, having them meet strangers and feel comfortable about it, and if we can get people in the outdoors, enjoying our national parks and what we've been provided with, Mother Nature. I just feel I feel good every day doing what I do because I feel there's a cause associated with it that's going to benefit all of us. And it seems appropriate on my birthday today that I share with you my mother's line, which was, you have to leave the campsite better than you found it. And I think we all have that responsibility for this world. And I think that if each of us can contribute in the ways and the industries and the responsibilities we have and share some of this, that we will.
All right, well, thanks everyone. And just a quick note, while you guys have the hard copies of this report, it posts online tomorrow to KOA's press room. I know there's a significant amount of information in here and may be easily